It's the Slam Dunk.
Okay, folks, it's David Seymour versus the academics, and it's become breathless and, quite frankly, way over the top on both sides. But at least both sides are thumping away here. Academics have openly criticised the Regulatory Standards Bill, which passed its first reading weeks ago. Leading professor, former New Zealander of the Year, Dame Anne Salmon, gave her stinging critique, a 9-point takedown for which Seymour replied online, calling her a victim of the day and accusing her of regulatory standards derangement syndrome. This, folks, is what you call free speech in action, and not much more than that. Okay, Seymour looks like he's a little thin-skinned, having called for academic freedom in universities. Then, when he suddenly gets the academics hauling into his bill, he perhaps stoops a little low and stupidly attacks them as suffering from a syndrome and starts rolling out an online campaign with each of them as a victim of the day. Some find it funny, some find it silly, some find it juvenile. Some say it's an abuse of his high office. Others say it's inciting hate and violence towards academics in a Trump-style way. I say it's probably thin-skinned, Seymour. But if the academic is wrong, then Seymour has every right to thump back. How he does so is his choice, and victim of the day has really upset these people, these academics, who say they must be free to think deeply and free from such a nasty political attack. Well, it's Seymour being Seymour, isn't it? He's hardly a huge surprise. He even told them it was about poking some fun at them. This is what he said to them.
If people want to go out and make completely incorrect statements, then I'm going to get a bit playful and have some fun with them.
But the academics can't believe the tone and style of Seymour's online response. They now see this as a wild breach of high office. Come on. A Trumpian style of abuse of our greatest minds. And it's online abuse. It's inciting hate. And this should never have come from an office with such dignified existence. The Deputy PM's office. In America, this is leading to scholars being harassed, assaulted, physically, even, and shot and killed, says Dame Anne Salmon. And surely no one in New Zealand, least of all Seymour, can be unaware of these gravely dark developments and all that kind of stuff. Dame Anne even goes as far as saying Seymour has likely broken laws, digital communication laws, with his approach to critiquing the academics. Stop him now, she says. Shivers, it's got serious. Are lives at stake here? No. It's such overinflated rubbish. Luxon, the Cabinet Office, they've all received complaints about Mr. Evil, and Mr. Evil must be stopped. It must be stopped before civil society collapses to its knees and the regulatory standards becomes law and ruins our very society, and our protections of communities are lost, and the precious treaty and its place in society is undermined forever. So it must be restored to its guiding glory to give us direction in life and to ensure that Māori rights are followed and adhered to and not simply ignored. But it's not all that, is it? And Seymour has defended himself, saying he's going to have some fun with these idiots, who he believes are really wrong about the powers and breadth of his bill. This is how Seymour plays. He's different. High office is not going to restrict him to turn into some kind of non-risk-taking version of a grey Peter Dunn. Hardly. Seymour is bringing all sorts of new tools and techniques and practices to the job of deputy. Turning the tables and cameras on John Campbell recently in a recent interview. That's a recent example of it. And suddenly Campbell's journalism is in David Seymour's spotlight. Woo! How controversial. In no country should it be illegal to call academics the victim of the day. If that's what he wants to do, make a pig of yourself, mate. It makes Seymour look a little snowflakish, doesn't it? But it should never be banned. It's free speech in action. There is no rule that says Seymour can't do this. And the breathless, thin-skinned woe is me, sky is falling in approach from the academics and people like Willie Jackson and Tory Whānau has to be equally called out. Willie Jackson needs to understand he's no longer in power. Seymour and co have the mandate now and the numbers, and if they don't like it, convince more New Zealanders to join their cause and roll the right at the next election. This is democracy, Willie. Rather than moan and groan about, oh no, their libertarian views are making it into law. Look at your own record. Is this sour grapes at being powerless and lost in opposition? Shit, bugger me, it's only been 18 months. You've got years of being in the wilderness yet to endure before making it back to across the other side. You've got to earn it, mate. People want to see contrition and humility, Willie, from your time in office. We're still waiting. Hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders endured your lawmaking for years and didn't like it and certainly felt like they had no voice. But they didn't run off to Jacinda saying, Willie's introducing too many Māori words and this co-governance stuff. No point, you rolled her as well. So the centre-rights established their heavy hitters. They went to work on your guys' laws, like the Three Waters Bill. They convinced enough Kiwis it was water reform mixed with the desires of a few Māori radicals to be 50-50 at the table. And the country eventually saw through it. But you can't tell me you gave a shit for the views of other people who had concerns what you were doing. You openly swaggered past them and told them to go to hell, basically. Get stuffed in your own delightful Willie way, of course. You smiled, laughed and slipped the knife in. Then came the election and Jacinda knew what was coming, so she fled the country. And you've chosen to stay. You convinced Labour that you were still worthy of a high list placing, and Labour couldn't say no. I mean, you're Māori. How offensive to drop you lower. So you got back in on a falling vote. You didn't win a seat. You didn't win a seat at all. Now you're complaining about democracy. You came in as a list MP on a falling vote and you're complaining about democracy. This is democracy, Willie. I know you lost, but you personally won, didn't you? I mean, your party lost. You didn't win a seat. And under the great protections and privileges on offer under MMP, you once again picked up your close to $200,000 salary for the next 3 years, $600,000. And you only have to answer to Chippy, who screams, yes, Willie, each time you walk into the office. In my world, when the media started collapsing, we all lost jobs. When the country voted you out, Willie, you stayed on full pay. And now you're moaning about democracy? Get a life. And be careful. Willie, it's their turn. They got in. And I reckon their power, reach and impact is being overstated here. Luxon's hardly a man with the balls to strip Māori of their rights. We've seen that. He's not a man who enters conflict well, and he's not a man who exits conflict having destroyed the other side on the strength of his argument and beliefs. MMP, Luxon, the checks and balances, all these things remain, Willie. You have such a weak PM right now that he was even on your side during the Treaty Principles debate. That's what the record says. He said he didn't like one thing about it. Shivers. He was disappointing and weak at times for the people on the right. He may well have been he was so weak, he was close to almost joining the Hikoi. But his loyalty in the end is on parliamentary record that he voted with you and the protesters to keep Seymour's Treaty Principles at bay. It didn't stop him being abused, though, did it? Now, you've all written to Luxon asking him to be the saviour here again. Asking him to take action against Seymour. What for? At best, he'll tell David to perhaps adopt a less combative style with those that are far more deep-thinking and sensitive than the great unwashed, perhaps. But try telling politicians like Seymour and Peters to adopt a new style. Luxon might just face his own blowback. For a man with no hair, I mean, what will that blowback look like? At some point, he'd have to show loyalty to the thinking and ideas on his side of the house. He can't be a weak treaty warrior forever. At some point, he has to back his Deputy Prime Minister. But the sky isn't falling in, Willie. And to the academics, it's not falling in. And if the criticism of the bill is going to be wrong, then Seymour has every right to fire back and publicly disagree. Victim of the day, loser of the week, wanker of the month. Might be a bit below his pay grade nowadays, but it's Seymour's style, and Seymour may want to reflect on this maybe. But when an academic makes a mistake, it should not go unchecked. No way. Why should it? And to check it is not a Trumpian form of being silenced. This is what democracy looks like. Everyone usually gets their turn in this country, but Labour needs to be careful here. It ran roughshod over hundreds of thousands of Kiwis who felt sidelined by their policies and politics. Jackson ran amok, with no concern for how Pākehā New Zealanders viewed his ideas. He loved it that they hated him. But back to Dame Anne. She says of Seymour's bill, the worst part of the bill attempts to tie the hands of the state in regulating private activities or initiatives that create public harm by requiring those who benefit from laws or regulations to compensate others for the losses of profit that may arise. So taxpayers may be required to compensate, say, tobacco companies for regulation that reduces their profit. This could play out across mining and forestry and everything around extractive industries. Rubbish! We're not paying any compensation to tobacco companies because of this. It's rubbish. And those sharp legal minds following this debate and these wild claims are rightly saying, whoa, hold up. That's not true. That criticism is actually unfair, totally not right, and risks inflaming others on the opposing side. And this is why free speech is at play here. Send in your best arguments and watch the bullshit get flushed. No one's life is being threatened. Nothing's being incited, but ideas and opinions from both sides, of course. Sure, Seymour's a little different to what's come before. He has a talented but bored research team of pimply youngsters who likely want to have some fun with those who take themselves so seriously and who must really be called out, so they're having a bit of fun. And some of our finest thinkers who present themselves as so serious and so precious must realise there's a new deputy sheriff in town with his own syndrome who's going to poke the bear, especially if the bear is showing signs it needs to be poked. And if the bear is wrong and breathlessly wrong, then the new Deputy Sheriff may lower himself to poke and prod and be a bit playful. Surely the Deputy PM has better things to do, but this work is central to his beliefs. It's not some well-organised, amazing hate campaign, but I bet by next week it's all over. It's not some sophisticated online campaign designed to incite and target hate at the dames and knights and deep thinkers locked away in their ivory towers of elite thinking. It's a cheap rank amateur knockoff from Seymour. It's Seymour being a Seymour. He's being an immature dick. And that's still legal in our society, thank heavens. Academia, Willie Jackson, Tory Whānau, you need to find a better argument because the sky simply can't be falling in each time they oppose Seymour. And they can't be falling in each time they oppose this government. It's the boy who cried wolf. The Treaty Principles Bill was going to wipe Māori from the face of the earth. But I told you it wouldn't, and it hasn't. Now this bill is going to shut down democracy for decades to come. No, it's not. If it really does start to collapse the world as we know it, then the outlet's called democracy. Muster your arguments, finance and people, and bring in the examples of the communities who have so heavily lost. Get the votes, get into government, and quickly rush to overturn this bill and save us all from Seymour. Problem is, this ain't even three waters. The public got that. Remind me how this bill, if it becomes law, is going to upset Kiwis from Kaitaita Bluff. What are they about to lose? How will they fundamentally have their lives changed because of it? Will it really become so much worse? Dame Anne says this is a dangerous bill that attacks the fundamental rights of Kiwis and democratic principles. I can assure you we're not about to lose democracy. We have one of the most open democracies in the world and our politicians are amongst the most accessible. If anything, I say MMPs allowed secretive horse trading to be put before and after the will of the people. Salmon is so concerned about 8% parties, minor parties, wielding far too much power. So get this. When a 7% party under Winston Peters chose the second largest party in 2017, ignoring the National Party, whom everyone considered had won the election, where was the great Dame Anne Salmon putting up a protest for the National Party and its supporters who felt duped by Winston Peters? Was that okay because Peters had chosen the deep-thinking intellectuals? What's happening now is no different. Not at all, really. There's a new group in power, and the lovies, the intellectuals, and the deep thinkers feel shut out and don't like it. But be consistent. If small parties wielding too much influence worry you, then let me remind you of your absence during the 2017 government formation. The silence remains deafening, and I really do wonder why.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.